Okay, I'm going to be demonstrating how to draw this rabbit by Albrecht Durer. So you first want to start with large shapes. So I'm noticing how the body is on an angle and it's basically an oval. Then the head again, I've got another oval, and I'm noticing how it overlaps the body. All right. The feet, I'm just going to do them as one shape, those two front feet together right now, again at an angle. The other foot down here. And I see that hind leg jutting off. And then the ears. So again, I've got the one at maybe an angle like this, and the other going straight up. And then I can flesh them out as kind of oval shapes. I'm going to have that one ear bow out a little bit like that, the way it does over here. All right, now I can notice, all right, the ear touches this back haunch, so I'm going to do that. And then there's just a little bit of space before it gets to this second haunch. And so now I have the first time where I'm noticing that I'm going to want to make some changes. So I drew my line first, and then I can go back and I can erase what I don't want and what I don't need. All right, so I don't worry about making mistakes. Another thing here is I'm noticing maybe this foot is a little bit closer to where I had initially, to the two front feet than to where I had initially drawn it. All right, so I'm making changes. Okay, now I can also go and I can erase that line there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start to look more at the details. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the rabbit's head because we know that we want to, that's going to be an important part of the drawing. So I can notice some of the specific contours. A lot of people may want to start with the outlines. So I'm going to notice how this ear goes in where it attaches, and then I have kind of an angle like so. All right, instead of that curve. Then it juts out, and I've got the eyebrow, essentially, of the rabbit. And that's about where the eyes are. And I'm going to draw this guideline here to show how the eyes of the rabbit are in line with each other. And then I can actually draw this side of the nose. And I'm going to draw the bottom part of the rabbit's nose. And this part of the other side of the nose here. All right, and then the nose connects right to the rabbit's mouth here, or muzzle, on one side and the other side. All right, and then on this side, you only see a little bit of the face as it goes back behind the nose, and it's in what we call a 3/4 view. Okay, and then I can get this eye in here, and I can get the other eye in here. And notice how that kind of eyebrow connects right into the nose and overlaps the bottom part of the eye like that. Okay, so now I can, again, erase some of these areas that I don't need. All right, my eraser was a little too big there. All right, and then I can notice, all right, where does the bottom of the mouth here of the rabbit attach to the hair underneath the rabbit's chin? So I can start to draw, and notice now I'm using these little lines next to each other to create that line, and now I'm starting to create that illusion of hair. So I'm thinking about texture right away. All right, I can also get into the rabbit's paws. So I'm going to notice, all right, the one paw is a little bit further out than where I drew it, and I can see there's the top part. It's kind of like the ankle or the wrist, and then I've got the part down here that's the like the hand or the foot, really. Okay, and the same over here. I've got the part that's more like the leg still, or the wrist, and then I've got the part here that's the hand. And then within that, again, I can look at very carefully at those details, and I can say, okay, I'm going to have one little oval there for the digit that's in front, and then it's going to overlap the next one, and this next one's going to be a little longer, and then we see these couple that are hiding in the back there. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more delicate eraser. And then I'm going to get in here with a more delicate eraser. And then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate eraser. All right, and then I'm going to get in here with a more, I'm trying to get a more delicate Let's try this one instead. And I can start to erase a little bit. Okay. So erased a little bit too much. All right, and then I can start to go back in and I can add some details if I want to. And then the other side again, so I'm seeing how this first one comes in front, and then it overlaps this next one a little bit, and then the next two come a little higher up. All right, okay, figured out how to make my eraser a little smaller and more delicate. There we go. Okay, and we can add the nails on here. All right. All right, now that we've got those front paws drawn, now I'm going to worry about this side here. This comes up more like so. I'm going to redraw that little foot of the rabbit and see where the hair is coming in front of it. And I've got this patch of white fur there where it comes in front of this back haunch. Okay, so notice all my lines are a little bit sketchy, and that's fine because then I can just erase the parts where I don't need them anymore. Okay, and now I can go back in and I can get a little bit more detail after I've erased. So I have a little too many lines here, so I'll get rid of the ones I don't need. Okay, and I'll redraw. So again, I've got this one kind of toe, and then another toe, and then the hair starts to come in front of the rest. All right, I can draw these little claws here. All right, let's see. Now I'm going to move up here. So I already did this white fur that's over here. All right, now I'm going to see where that attaches. There's kind of a line here between the body of the rabbit and the rabbit's back haunch. Okay, got that part. I can look at this ear again, and I can make sure that top part of the ear is a little more rounded. So I'm following all of these different lines and drawing the shapes. I'm paying attention to how large things are, where they meet or come together if there are two different lines, to do my best to get the proportions the same as Albrecht Durer drew them. Okay, here I see a little space between the two ears and then they touch. All right, the two ears, this one is just a little bit taller. We'll go in and then out. All right, and so now I think it's time to go back, and again, I'm going to erase a little bit. I'm going to erase some of these lines, these original guidelines that I don't need anymore. So we're working big to small. Down here, there were a lot of sketchy lines still that I didn't need. There were some of these guidelines, so I can get rid of that kind of wrist part that I did. All right, and now we're going to go in, we're going to continue to add some detail, and we're thinking about shading and we're thinking about texture at the same time, because we can get a lot of the texture done at the same time as the shading. All right, so right here I notice is one of the darkest places on the drawing, and we've got one ear coming in front of the fur. So I'm starting here and I'm seeing kind of these lines of fur. So the line might go like this, but it's also textured. So I'm doing this as well as I go. And then I can continue and make some more textury, feathery lines around it because it's not in the middle of all white. The area around it also has some value to it. All right, now we're going to look here. It's lighter, so I could outline that area where it's a little bit lighter. This cheek is a little bit lighter. There's some area under the rabbit's eye, It's a little bit lighter. It's kind of the rabbit's lower eyelid. Okay, so all of those areas might be a little bit lighter. I'm also going to notice I don't need this line here connecting the two eyes anymore. Okay. All right, so now I can start to shade around those areas. So to make those areas stay white and to give them the contrast, I don't really touch those areas themselves. I'm shading around them, and that's what makes them appear lighter if I'm using a white paper and a darker drawing tool. All right, so I'm getting now here into some of the shading on the rabbit's nose. I'm going to notice which side looks a little darker. You might see the nose go in and out there a little bit. It's not a perfectly straight line. I'm going to look at this area behind the nose. I can fill the eye in a little bit. Notice that in here I don't shade everything evenly. I'm actually looking for variation. I'm looking for the spots that are a little bit darker and the spots that are a little bit lighter. And I'm doing that because I'm able to do that because I've got the original right in front of me, and I'm looking very, very carefully. The whole time I'm drawing, I keep looking back over at Albrecht Durer's original piece. Just as Albrecht Durer was probably looking at a real rabbit for a lot of the time while he was doing this. Okay, and as I'm doing this, notice that I don't stop correcting the drawing. So anytime I notice, oh, this looks a little different than how I originally drew it, well, I'll just go back and I'll just change it. All right, so I've gotten a little off track. I'm going to go back to this area over here where I was doing some of this shading before. I'm shading underneath the rabbit's chin. Shading all around the hair. That patch of fur where we realized it was a little bit lighter. And all the while, I'm thinking about how my shading lines can also be used as texture. Now here, I'm starting to get more into value. I want to make sure that I have this shadow in the background. Now I'm using a digital tool rather than an actual pencil, so you may find that you approach this a little bit differently, but in general, I'm trying to shade right around these edges, and then once I create that buffer zone, then I want to make my marks flat so that it feels like ground. And I can go right up to the edges here to help reinforce those edges. I'll want to do that as carefully as I can. Now, if I were using a pencil, I might also use an eraser to help a little bit with the blending here. So I'm going to see if I can do that with my digital tools. It doesn't work in exactly the same way, but I can go back and make sure that this isn't feeling like an outline over here, which is not